Boom! We are live, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls. Welcome to the Nolan Hawkeye Anthony YouTube channel. And I thank all of you for being here, wherever you may be. And of course, however you may be listening. We are back at it for yet another episode of a game preview. This time, it is, of course, Iowa versus Michigan State. Iowa is fresh off the heels of a huge victory, much needed victory, a victory in which I proclaimed, stated, put forward, emphasized that this would be possibly the make it or break it game for the Iowa Hawkeyes in determining whether this was going to be an average to slightly above average 7 to 8 win season or a good to elite level season in the range of a 9, 10, maybe even 11 win season, depending on how everything shakes out. There were a lot of good things about the Iowa game against Washington. I will review some of those. Before I do, if there's any Michigan State fans that come across this video, full disclosure, obviously I am an Iowa Hawkeye fan. Thus, my analysis of this game is going to be largely based off of that. The fact that I am, of course, an Iowa Hawkeye fan. But for a big portion of this video, there will be nothing but facts, stats about both teams heading into this contest. So for the Iowa Hawkeyes, just to name a few things right off the bat that I was happy to see, it was good to see the offense really playing to their strengths, which is the run game, and allowing the passing game to supplement the strength of the run game. I thought that Iowa should have done that a lot more against Ohio State. To me, it felt like they were pressing when they didn't necessarily need to do so, considering where they were at the juncture in which they had decided to do that and how close the game actually was. So it was good to see that. Cade McNamara actually had a better total QBR than I expected. I believe it was actually his highest rated QBR for the season, which, again, it was not, stupendously high or anything like that, but it was high enough. And that's exactly what we need from him. And that's what I said in the postgame. I have never wanted perhaps, but I've never expected Cade McNamara to be a elite 300-yard passing game quarterback with 4 touchdowns. That's just not what I expect. Not only from him due to the type of quarterback that he is, but adding the Iowa offense and kind of what they're looking to do, it's just not really feasible. Cade McNamara does not have a big arm. So you're not going to see Iowa, and I think they'd be stupid to do so, really, looking for large gainers, massive passing chunk plays. It's going to be more of a methodical approach. Most of the big gainers that Iowa has this year with Cade McNamara as their quarterback is going to be from the run game or from short passes that turn into longer passes from the wide receiver, turning it upfield and making something happen. That is how it's going to work. Cade McNamara is at his best when he is doing well in the short to intermediate passing ranges of the football game. You're not going to see Cade McNamara out there being a Nate Stanley, launching 30, 40-yard bombs, Heck, even Spencer Petras or CJ Beathard. It's just not going to happen. So it was good to see that. It was good to see Dayton Howard. I've been waiting to see him. I think he has a ton of upside, a ton of potential at the wide receiver position. He has excellent frame. He's just extremely raw. When Iowa received a commitment from him, he was very fresh in his football career, and he was predominantly a baseball player at that point. Obviously, Caleb Johnson and his performance was masterful. The offensive line played great. They were opening up huge holes, not just the offensive line, but all the players. Iowa really is a full offensive scheme where every player has to block when asked to do so. The tight ends, the wide receivers. So that was really good to see. Caleb Johnson really is in the top 5, if not the top 3, for the Doak Walker Award. He is right up there with touchdowns, with his rushing yards, his yards per carry, and he is Iowa's top guy. Now, we started kind of the positive for me outside of that was starting to see Iowa use him in the passing game as well. That is kind of the one thing that we hadn't really seen. But at this point, Caleb Johnson is Iowa's top offensive player regardless. And Iowa, they need to start doing whatever they can when they can to get him the ball within reason. I mean, you don't want him to get hurt because he's touching the ball every time, every single play, but still. So that was good. Iowa's defense is still playing good. They're approaching the elite status that I knew that I expected them to be, rather. Aaron Graves continues to have a great season. The biggest thing that is going to take this Iowa team towards elite status is the emergence of the secondary. Sebastian Castro is playing just fine. Jamari Harris is having a strong year. It's the other guys, the Quinn Schulte, the Xavier Wampa, the Cohen Entringer, the Deshaun Lee, the TJ Hall. Having one of those guys emerge into a solid piece that can be counted on. All right, guys, let's dive in to the actual game preview here and look at these two ball clubs. I'm a little tired. It's been a busy week. I want to pump this video out for you guys and get some rest. The game is at 4:30 on NBC. Iowa is a 6.5-point favorite. Let's see if it's on the road or if it's at home for Iowa. It is on the road. It will be at Michigan State. This is, I guarantee, a game that they are going to show out in force and try to steal. And Michigan State's not terrible. I mean, they are 3-3, one win in conference play. ESPN Football Power Index does give Iowa a 71% chance to win this game, meaning if they played 10 times Iowa on the road at Michigan State, they would win 7 out of 10 times. And Michigan State would win a little over 2 of the 10 times. Some of the leading statistical guys: Cade McNamara, 794 yards, 5 TDs, and 3 INTs. Childs for Michigan State has 1,212 yards, 5 TDs to 8 INTs. Rushing yards: Caleb Johnson already almost has 1,000 yards rushing, and we're about midpoint through the year. Actually, you know what? Let's see if Iowa is midpoint through the year. They have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 games left, and that's not including the bowl game. But at this point, or the Big Ten championship game, if I were to make it, there's no guarantee that top players play in the bowl games anymore. So, I wouldn't count that. But so Iowa is halfway through the year and he almost has 1,000 yards rushing. I think it's very possible that Caleb Johnson finishes the year with minimum 1,500 yards rushing, which is absolutely insane. This will be the best running back performance Iowa has had since Sean Green, and will put Caleb Johnson in the annals of Iowa football history if he's able to finish this off strong. I mean, that is no joke. That is 100% the case. And it will be interesting to see if he's able to finish that way. He's already got 12 touchdowns, which is that's probably the most impressive part, is his ability to get in the end zone. And that's one of the things that I said in the preseason is he needs to try to increase his touchdown output. So I'm trying to think of other great Iowa running backs. I mean, Iowa has always had a running back here or there that's had like a decently good season. In the post game, I talked about Tyler Goodson. Akram Wadley had a pretty good year in his final year at Iowa. Even probably the year before, he had a solid year as well. Of course, there's Sean Green, Brandon Weegar, I think had a good year. Adam Robinson had a good year. Marcus Coker had a good year. Mark Wiseman, here or there. LaShawn Daniels. Although LaShawn Daniels, when he played, he did have a good season, but it was more a running back committee situation where pretty much the entire run game that was quite possibly Iowa's in 2015, Iowa's best rushing year as a whole in the Kirk Ferentz era. I mean, it's up there. I'd have to look back and see, but so and then of course you have, Liddell Betts, and probably some of the running backs in the early 2000s. Let's see, Fred. Well, I actually take that back. I'm not sure. I would have to see when Kirk Ferentz started, but Liddell Betts was 1998 to 2001. So I think he was in the Kirk Ferentz era. Yeah, actually, he has Iowa 1999. So he certainly was a part of it. Albert Young as well. He'd be one. Fred Russell was one that I was thinking of. So yeah, he would immediately be put there. I mean, he's already 13th on the list. And last year, he basically, I think he may have, did Caleb Johnson redshirt last year? So no, he did not redshirt last year, but he did miss several games due to injury. And of course, LaShawn Williams was given the starting running back nod as he was the most reliable running back that Iowa had last year. But Caleb Johnson finished with 463 yards. He just really could not get himself physically to a consistent place to give consistent production. And the running back position, definitely a lot of guys are guys that need to have that rhythm. Not every running back is a rhythm running back, but a lot of guys do. So anyways, getting back to this, he is approaching that sort of status. K. Lynch Adams, 338 yards, 2 touchdowns for Michigan State. That's their leading rusher. And leading receivers, Jacob Gill, who did not have a catch against Washington. He may have been out due to injury, has 169 yards with 1 TD. And N. Marsh has 16 receptions for 320 yards and 1 touchdown. So yeah, he did play. I had to do a bunch of research to see, since all these websites make you these Iowa websites make you pay for any sort of information like this. So that's pretty much it on that. here are the last couple of games. It is worth noting that Michigan State, it looks like, is coming off a bye week into this game. They've lost their last three, although two have been against some pretty heavy competition in Oregon, Ohio State, and Boston College. Let's see how Boston College is doing. They're 4-2 this year. So they definitely do have had a tough last three games. And then I just wanted to show the QBRs really quickly. I think I'm going to start adding this into my stats just to show where people rank in the Big Ten. Total QBR, Aiden Childs for Michigan State has a total QBR of a 56, good for 12th in the Big Ten. Cade McNamara is last. Just because obviously I'm an Iowa fan, I want to show you guys his game log here so you guys can see how he has stacked up for each contest. Like I said, against Washington, that was his best QBR of 71.6. Although, if you just look at the numbers, 8 of 14 for only 108 yards, 57. Total QBR takes into account everything. Sacks, plays that the quarterback affected or didn't affect, but could have affected, points that were put on the board and the quarterback was responsible for, or points being taken off the board. It takes it's like a total encapsulation of each play and how well the quarterback did on each play. So, if you were to just look at the yards and completions and touchdowns, you would think the Illinois State game was his best game. But that was actually his third best QBR. His two best were actually Ohio State and Washington. So that to me does seem like he is improving. I hate to say it, but Kirk Ferentz is right, or he's becoming more familiar and comfortable in Tim Lester's offense, and Tim Lester is becoming more comfortable with Cade. 2 back-to-back weeks with his best QBR. So, and you wouldn't expect it. Again, like the Ohio State game, 14 of 20, 98 yards. And again, 50 is average. Okay. Now, overall, his QBR and him being last, that's not good, but still. All right, guys, let's look at the team stats here. This is total offense. Iowa is 94th, averaging 357.5 yards a contest. Michigan State, I believe, is on page 3 here at 103rd. They are averaging 349.8 yards a contest. Next, let's look at total defense for both teams. Again, and as I told you guys in my post game, Iowa doing that against Washington, who has the 9th best total defense, even after the game against Iowa, is pretty remarkable. Okay. I mean, Washington, stats can be deceiving, but Washington definitely has an above average. I would say I would categorize them as a good defense. They're not elite, but they're good. And Iowa's offense did that against Minnesota, who has the 7th best total defense. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to make a Facebook post about that, because I think that would surprise a lot of people. I mean, these are the numbers, folks. So Iowa is 29th. I'm not sure that it looks like the stats are updated. Let's see where Michigan State is at. They are 37th. And they're giving up 329.8 yards a game. And then Iowa is giving up 316 yards a game. But of course, Iowa does have a bend don't break defense. Their main stat would be scoring defense. Let's look at scoring offense first. Iowa might be no. I was just about to say that maybe they'd be on page 1 for the first time in a long time. I mean, heck, them being on page 2. Their best, I would have to go back and look, but I think early in Brian Ferentz's tenure, he had a couple of top 60 scoring offenses and total offense. But this is going to be the best offensive output Iowa has had in years. So Tim Lester is already doing a good job, or a decent job. We are already seeing a marked improvement in his stats, in Iowa's offensive stats. They're 64th in scoring offense. They're averaging 29.2 points per game. Let's see where Iowa State is 52nd. Let's see where Michigan State is. Minnesota is 91st. If I had to guess, they're probably page 3 because their total offense is page 3. And there they are. They are 118th, averaging 19.8 points per game. But again, they played 2 high caliber opponents in Oregon and Oregon State, and Boston College doesn't look too bad either. So I actually think that Michigan State's record is a little deceiving. I don't think, now that I'm reviewing this more intently, that they are as bad as well, it's not that they are bad based on their record. It's just they're not. Like, if you were to just look at their record, you would probably get a different indication than if you examine it game by game. They probably are a little bit better than their record indicates. That's probably a better way to put it. And then this is scoring defense. Iowa is 24th, giving up 17.67 points per game. It's going to take some time to get that Ohio State game off their backs. And then Michigan State is 45th. All right, guys, those are the team stats. And last but not least, I'll give you guys my analysis and game prediction for this contest. So this will be Iowa's, if they stay on the trajectory that they're on, this will be Iowa's best offensive season since about the 2020 shortened 2019. They were 66th. And they averaged 28.2 points per game. And again, by and large, in college football, some of the stats have increased. So 28.2 would probably not, you'd probably be on page 3 in 2024 stats. Iowa is around the same spot, and they're averaging almost 30 points a game. So, but they are only 6 games into the season. This was 2020, and Iowa was 40th. Let me see if I can find 2021. And then Iowa started to take a step back because that's when Ken O'Keefe left, was around this time. He was there for the first couple of years, and this was 2021. Iowa was 99th in scoring offense. They averaged 23.4 points a game. So if I were to do this like a full season, I would say this has been their best offensive season since 2019. But if I take into account and count the 2020 season as basically the same thing, which for the most part I do, 2020 would probably be the best statistical year Iowa has had in the last, I'd say, since Brian Ferentz took over, and since he was subsequently gone. All right, guys, let me give you guys my final analysis for this game. So, as I was saying, I actually do think that Michigan State is better than their record indicates. So yeah, here's the side-by-side comparison: 66th in 2019 and 64th in 2024. All right, I'm not going to get sidetracked. Um, they are better than their record indicates. I think that they have had a really tough schedule, playing three teams, one that I would categorize as above average, and two that I would categorize as elite. The above average being Boston College, the elite being Oregon and Ohio State. The fact that this is on the road definitely helps Michigan State. And as I said, when Iowa had the bye week against Ohio State, in theory, that should help. But sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the off week really only aids in getting guys healthy, but it does also kind of halt the momentum that you have going in a weird way. It can kind of put this block on the kickstart that your team is having, this one-way train towards having more and more progress and progression. So teams can kind of stagnate, if not take a step back, because they have lost some of the momentum. And it's not purposeful. Good coaches find a way to eliminate that. I think most coaches at this juncture in sports, in football history, just kind of utilize the bye week to get guys healthy and rest, because much of whatever development that the teams would have had would be in the season. But that's a different type of video to discuss, bye weeks and what teams should do in the bye week. But in theory, the bye week gives this added extra week to prepare for the other opponent. But again, sometimes that can work against you. You can prepare too much and overthink it. Kirk Ferentz always says that essentially they don't really do that. They kind of just do their normal thing. They don't utilize the extra week to look at the opponent that they have coming up. They use that extra week to develop and get extra practice in. And then they use that week leading up as the week, like they would normally have, to prepare for the other opponent. So regardless, Michigan State should be coming into this contest healthy. By the way, Iowa is 13th in the nation in rushing offense. I decided to pull up that stat. I haven't really utilized it very much this year, but given how well Iowa has been running the football this year, I think it is a good stat to show. But Iowa is coming off of a massive victory over Washington, and yes, it was at home, but they beat a definitive, above average, maybe even good football team that beat ranked Michigan. Now, personally, I don't think Michigan is as good as people think, and I think Iowa should be ranked and not Michigan if you look at their resumes. So there's that. Uh, this is another big contest, obviously, for both teams. Michigan State is 102nd in rushing offense, for what it's worth. This is a big game for both teams. Michigan State would love nothing more than to get a signature win by defeating Iowa. It would be big. And this, regardless of Michigan State being better than their record indicates, this definitely would be a game that set Iowa back. Kind of how I view this game from an Iowa perspective is that this is a trap game. This is a game that Michigan State is not what their record indicates, but their record being what it is, I can see how there might be some thoughts that way. Hopefully, Iowa doesn't play into that. They shouldn't. They should remain disciplined. But it's on the road. It's going to be in a tough environment. It's a late game. It's a night game. So this kind of has all the trappings of a trap game. So I'm a little bit concerned about that. Overall, I do think Iowa is the more talented team, top to bottom, on both sides of the football. I think Iowa has a better offense than Michigan State. I think they have a better defense than Michigan State, and I think they have a better special teams. They are the better team, and I do think that they have more talent. Iowa just needs to do what Iowa does, being able to run the football does carry on the road, and that is what they need to continue to do in order to get this W. Michigan State, they're going to have to get turnovers. They're going to have to stifle Iowa's offense. They're going to have to eliminate Caleb Johnson, and, hope that they can get on the board early and get an early lead and put Iowa with their backs against the wall early in the game. Anything's possible. These are both Big Ten caliber opponents. So, again, nothing would surprise me ultimately, but this is a game that Iowa should win. I'm going to pick Iowa to win this game. I'm going to go 30-15. I think Iowa wins this game by double digits. They should win this game by double digits. But I would not be surprised if this game is closer than it should be, and Michigan State plays a good, solid game, given the fact that they're off a bye week, that this would be a chance for a signature win, and it's going to be a late-night game. I guarantee the crowd is going to be bumping and jumping and going crazy. So Iowa just needs to stay disciplined, and again, the good news is that not only does the run game carry, but so does having a good defense. This is a big opportunity for Iowa's defense to take a step towards that elite status, and will this team to victory if Iowa's offense is having a tough go of it early in the game. But ultimately, I think Minnesota is a better opponent than Michigan State, and Iowa thumped them. And I think Washington is a better opponent than Michigan State, and Iowa thumped them as well. So, all right, guys, thank you guys so much for watching. Be sure to smash the subscribe button. I thank all of you guys for being here. And last but not least, like, comment, share, subscribe. And I will see you guys next time. DBAP, don't be a pussy willow and facts or feelings, because your feelings just don't matter. I love you guys. I will see you guys next time. Go Hawks. Bye-bye.